Good morning, guys. Sorry, it didn't make the little clinky noise to let me know that it was recording. Anyways, good morning. Happy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. I'm not in my Star Wars room today only because I'm trying to do this fast. And if I record it on my other computer, then I have to move it to this one, and then I have to upload, and it's complicated. Anyway, so we're going to try to get through this as fast as we can. So we are going to read our 31st book today, Summer of the Sea Serpent, and this one is really fun. I really enjoy this one. I think this one is like 12 chapters, so this one is actually shorter than the previous two. So yeah, but this one's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy this one too. So if you're reading, again, if you have the new version of Merlin Missions, I think this would be the third one, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, let's do vocabulary and then get right into it. So our first word is cove. And a cove basically is like a little sheltered area of water that's typically not part of it's part of an ocean, but it's like, I don't know, it's like a little inlet area where there's water and it's kind of like safe from like the big wide ocean. The next word is dappled. Dappled, like apple, dappled. And dappled means it has to do with the way light typically comes through either clouds or trees or something and leaves like little kind of dots of light everywhere. That's dappled. The next one is grasp. Grasp means to grab. So if you grasp something, you're grabbing it. Mighty. Mighty means like strong or strong and brave and able to do things. The next word is murky. Murky means like cloudy and kind of dirty. And typically we think of murky as water. We usually refer to it as water, like the water is murky. It's kind of, you can't see just through to the bottom. It might have some dirt in it or mud or something. The next word is receded. Receded means to pull back. So receded can be people can recede from something and pull back, but usually we think of receded as being objects. So like waves, kind of, how waves wash up and then come back. That's receding. And then the last word is solstice. And a solstice is basically the 2 times of year where the way that the tilt of the earth works in relation to the sun, it's kind of almost in a straight, usually the earth, quick history, I don't have anything round. Okay, so here's the earth, right? Typically the earth has an axis that runs top to bottom, North Pole to South Pole. The earth generally rotates around the sun tilted on its axis, so it's not straight up and down. So the North Pole is usually kind of off tilted and the South Pole is tilted. And, depending on where the sun is, if the sun's over here and this is the North Pole, then the North Pole is far away from the sun, so it's winter. And then when it rotates around and it goes like this, it's pointed towards the North Pole, so it's summer. Anyway, the point is that the solstice is the time of year where the earth is almost completely straight up and down, like not quite, but it's in its rotation or revolution. And so our days are typically about the same length. It's kind of that midway point usually between fall and winter, and spring and summer, as we call them, the solstices. In the past, they were celebrated as holidays. Some people still celebrate them today, so yeah, sorry, it's kind of complicated to explain. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So, book number 31, Summer of the Sea Serpent. And we already know what a serpent is because actually we've read a book about a sea serpent before. It was Viking Ships at Sunrise, and the sea serpent Sarf saved Jack and Annie's life. So, and before we get into this, Selkies are going to be mentioned in this. Selkies, spelled Selkies. Selkies are a Celtic myth that of people who were people on land, but then they would put on seal skin, and when they went into the sea, they became seals. And it's kind of a Celtic legend. They'll explain more in the book, but just for your knowledge. Okay, so chapter 1 is, it starts by saying, King Arthur's sword Excalibur, wrought by the lonely maiden of the lake. 9 years she wrought it, sitting in the deeps, upon the hidden bases of the hills. Alfred Lord Tennyson, Idylls of the King. So it's telling us about how the Excalibur got made. Okay, chapter 1, Summer Solstice. Jack was sitting on the porch reading the newspaper. It was a warm summer day, but the porch was shady and cool. Annie poked her head out of the door. Hey, Mom says she'll drive us to the lake this afternoon. Jack didn't raise his eyes from the weather page. "Did you know today's the summer solstice?" he asked. "What's that?" said Annie. "First official day of summer," said Jack. "There's more daylight today than any other day of the year." "Cool," said Annie. "Starting tomorrow, the days will start to get shorter and cooler," said Jack. A loud screech came from overhead. "Look," said Annie, "a seagull." Jack looked up. A large white gull circled the bright noon sky. "What's he doing here?" asked Jack. "The ocean's 2 hours away." The gull swooped and screeched again. "Maybe he's a messenger from Morgan and Merlin," said Annie. "Maybe one of them sent them to tell us the treehouse is finally back." Jack's heart began to pound. He put down the newspaper. "You think so?" he asked. He and Annie hadn't seen the magic treehouse since their Merlin mission to a haunted castle last Halloween. Jack had begun to worry the treehouse might never come back. "Look, he's flying towards the woods," said Annie. Jack jumped up. "Okay," he said, "let's go." "We'll be back soon, Mom," Annie called. Then she and Jack dashed across the yard, down the street, and into the Frog Creek woods. The shady woods were dappled with sunlight. The air smelled fresh and clean. Jack and Annie hurried past the leafy oaks until they came to the tallest. High up in the oak branches, the magic treehouse was waiting for them. "Wow," said Jack and Annie together. The treehouse looked exactly the same as when they'd last seen it. Annie grabbed the rope ladder and started up, and Jack followed. When they climbed inside, there was no one there. "Look, the royal invitation's still there," said Annie. She picked up the card that had taken them to Christmas in Camelot. "And our leaf from Merlin," said Jack. He picked up the yellow autumn leaf that sent them on their Halloween mission. "Hey, this is new," said Annie, and she picked up a pale blue seashell. The shell was shaped like a small fan, and there was writing on it. "Hey, this is Merlin's writing," said Annie. "We must be going on another mission for him." She read aloud the message. "To Jack and Annie of Frog Creek. On this summer solstice, journey to a land lost in mist, to a time even before Camelot. Follow my rhyme to complete your mission. M." Annie looked up. "What rhyme?" she asked. "Let me see," said Jack. He took the shell from her and turned it over. On the other side was a poem, and Jack read, "Before night falls on a long summer day, a shining sword must find its way into your hands and out of gloom, or Camelot's king shall meet his doom. To begin your quest for the Sword of Light, call for the help of the Water Knight. Then pass through the cave of the Spider Queen." "Spider Queen," said Annie. She frowned. Spiders were the only thing she was afraid of. "Don't think about it," said Jack. "Let's keep going." He read on. "Pass through the cave of the Spider Queen, and swim with the Selkie clothed in green. Enter the cove of the stormy coast, dive neath the cloak of the old gray ghost." Jack stopped reading. "Old gray ghost?" he said. "I don't think about it," said Amy. "Keep going." Jack kept reading. "Answer a question with love, not fear. With rhyme and sword your home is near." Both Jack and Annie were silent. "That's a lot to do before nightfall," said Jack. "Yeah," said Annie. "And I'm a little worried about that spider part." "And the ghost part," said Jack. "Hey," said Annie, "if we're going on another Merlin mission, I bet Teddy will be with us. He can help us get through the scary parts." "Right," said Jack. Hearing Teddy's name made him feel braver. "So," said Annie, "onward?" Onward was Teddy's favorite word. "Onward," said Jack, and he pointed to his handwriting on the wall on the pale blue shell. "I wish we could go to the time before Camelot." The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. The Water Knight. A salty breeze blew into the treehouse. Seagulls screeched overhead, and Jack and Annie looked out the treehouse window. They were high in the branches of a gnarled old tree. The tree was on a sea cliff beneath the snow-capped mountains. The mountains overlooked a rocky coast, but there was no sign of human life anywhere. "It looks wild and lonely here," said Annie. "Really lonely," said Jack. "I wonder where Merlin and Teddy are." "Dunno," said Annie. "They were at the trunk of our tree last time. Let's look for them in this one." She climbed down the rope ladder. Jack crammed the seashell in his pocket and followed. "Merlin," Annie called. "Teddy." They circled the gnarled trunk, but there was no sign of an entrance. They circled back again, and Jack tapped on the bark in several places. "I don't think anyone lives in this tree," said Annie. "I think you're right," said Jack. "Maybe they're in the water," said Annie. They walked a few feet to the edge of the cliff and looked down at the rugged coast. They saw 3 coves separated from each other by rocky cliffs. The cliffs were filled with shadowy crags and the dark mouths of caves. In the first cove, sunlit water flowed from the open sea through a small space between the cliffs, then washed onto a pebbly shore. The second cove was smaller, but looked like the first. The third cove was different. The farthest away, it was surrounded by a ring of bright green hills, and a thin white mist hung over the milky green waters. "I don't see any sign of them," said Jack. "I guess we'll have to get started without them." So, as you can see, 3 coves. So basically, the ocean's out here, and then there's like Cove 1, Cove 2, Cove 3, and they're kind of like little mountains in between them. Read the beginning of the rhyme, said Annie. Jack took the shell from his pocket and read, Before night falls on the long summer day, a shining sword must find its way into your hands and out of gloom, or Camelot's king shall meet his doom. Jack looked up. The sun was almost directly overhead. Well, it's about noon now, he said. Well, we don't have much time, said Annie. What do we do first? Jack looked at the rhyme and read, To begin your quest for the Sword of Light, call for the help of the Water Knight. Oh, easy, said Annie. It is, said Jack. Sure, said Annie. If he's a water knight, he's down by the water. She started down the steep rocky hill that led to the nearest cove. Jack stuffed the shell in his pocket. But who is the water knight? He yelled as he followed Annie. It doesn't matter, she yelled back. We just have to go to the water and call for help. They climbed over large boulders toward the cove. The boulders were slippery, but Jack's sneakers kept him from sliding. A damp breeze blew from the sea. It made his clothes and skin feel clammy. When they got to the shore, Jack wiped the mist off his glasses and looked around. The wide beach was covered with silvery pebbles, shells, and rows of sea foam. Sandpipers and gulls picked at tangled ribbons of soggy seaweed. The tide's out, said Jack. He studied the cliffs. I don't know how a knight can get down there. A horse could never make it over all those rocks. Let's just do what the rhyme says and tells us, said Annie, and see what happens. She stretched her arms and closed her eyes. Oh, water knight, whoever you are, come here and help Jack and Annie. Brother, Jack said to himself. Suddenly they heard the wild cries of seagulls. Jack, look, said Annie, and she pointed to the cove. The seagulls were screeching and flapping above a giant swirl of spray and foam. The swirl was spinning just above the surface of the water and headed towards the beach. Wow, said Annie, and she took off running across the sand. Come back, shouted Jack. No, look, said Annie. Jack hurried to the edge. Through the blur of spinning spray and foam, he saw a silver helmet of a knight appear above the water. He saw a silver breast of armor, and then a strange creature burst through the surface, carrying the knight on its back. The creature had a horse's head and neck and front legs, but instead of back legs, it had a long fish tail. With the water knight on its back, it half galloped, half swam through the cove. Seagulls shrieked wildly overhead, following the pair toward the shore. As the knight drew close, he looked at Jack and Annie, and then raised his gloved hand and beckoned them. "'Kay, we're coming," cried Annie, pulling off her sneakers. Let's think about this," said Jack. "We don't have time to think," said Annie. He wants us to help. He wants to help us. He's like the stag that came for us from Camelot." No, he's way weirder," said Jack. But Annie just tossed her sneakers onto the rocks and splashed into the shallow water. The knight held out his hand and helped her onto the strange horse creature. The creature slapped the fish's tail, sending up a fountain of spray. "Come on, Jack," Annie yelled. "We can't waste any time." So yeah, it's kind of a weird looking dude. It's like a fish horse, like a seahorse, but somehow weirder. Annie's right, Jack thought. They had to find the Sword of Light before night. He pulled off his sneakers and tossed them on the rocks. Then he stepped into the water and waded to the night. Annie helped pull Jack onto the horse. He sat on its scaly tail and clung to Annie while she held onto the water knight's tunic. The silvery fish's tail slapped the water. He closed his eyes. "Onward," Jack said faintly. The water knight turned from the shore. With slaps of its tail, it began galloping and swimming across the cove. Seagulls shrieked. Bumping up and down, Jack clung desperately to Annie. He kept his eyes squeezed shut and tried hard not to fall off. As they sped across the cove, the water knight guided his steed over the ripple and waves. The bumpy ride was smooth. "This is great!" cried Annie. Jack opened his eyes. With the wind and spray in his hair and face, he actually began to feel more excited than scared. "I bet he's taking us to the Sword of Light," said Annie. "We'll be done in no time." "That's too easy," said Jack. But as they sped over the waves, he did grow hopeful. Maybe she's right, he thought. Maybe it will be easy. Not all of our missions are hard. What about the rest of the stuff, though? What about... But before Jack could finish, the strange horse creature stopped and reared up. Jack and Annie tumbled over its tail and into the cold water. They sank for a moment, then bobbed back to the surface, frantically treading water. They looked to the water knight and his horse. The knight lifted his arm into the air and pointed to boulders near the base of a nearby cliff. Then he spread the fingers of his hand in a gesture of farewell. "Bye, thanks!" shouted Annie. The horse creature slapped the fish's tail and took off in a fountain of spray and foam. With the gulls circling above them, the mysterious pair whirled through the passage between the cliffs that led out to the sea. In a moment, they vanished into the open water beyond. Chapter 3. Cave of the Spider Queen. And that's where we're going to stop for today. So we will keep reading tomorrow. So don't forget to do your work this week. Have fun, and I'm going to try to get this thing uploaded in a jiffy. Bye, guys.